Okay, so the recording has started. Welcome everyone. My name is Lakhdeep. I'm going to be your host today for this presentation. So some things to keep in mind. Please keep your mic and video off throughout the whole presentation. You can ask questions using the chat box. I'll repeat this a couple of times throughout the presentation because we have a lot of people joining in and we don't want any disruptions throughout the presentation. You guys can ask questions at any point throughout the presentation. I'll try to answer them to the best of my abilities. I'm here till 6, so you guys can ask questions till 6, or if we wrap up earlier, that's fine too. So we'll start here. So OMSAS has started. This is that time when you get back into that application cycle, you have the nerves going, you're getting your MCAT scores back, you're asking for references. So it's a busy time. August and September are very busy. And then in October, you have Casper. And then the long wait starts. You're waiting for schools to call you in and then interview prep and finally hear back. It's a long process, but it all starts with OMSAS. So we're going to walk you through how to do well in this year's cycle, some tips and tricks. So FutureMeMD offers consultations for OMSAS. You guys can reach out. You can look at the packages that they offer and move forward if you need help with us. But I'm going to give you some free tips that you guys can implement in your application moving forward. Okay. So who am I? So I'm entering into Western Schulich School of Medicine. I did my undergraduate studies at McMaster University in life sciences. In life sciences, I was my general program in first year. Then I branched out into biology, environmental sciences. It's because I wasn't really into the molecular biology stuff. I was more like macroscopic. So I like looking at organisms instead of little DNA particles. And environmental sciences was something that I really wanted to explore. I was really into studying maps, studying other stuff to do with the world around us. So environmental sciences really fit in with me and my personality. And I had a blast. And that was something I considered going into geology, becoming a geoscientist, as I was prepping for my MCAT and my medical school applications. And that was something I had as a backup. But this worked out somehow, and I'm here now. So I also did my master's in global health at McMaster. This is a one-year program offered by the health sciences faculty. It's a very interdisciplinary program. I had classmates that were applying to medicine. Some of them were physicians in the past in different countries. Some of them were applying to residency. So a very mix of students that were coming together, so looking at problems at the global health, at the global level, and really tackling these and understanding how we can reduce inequities in healthcare and various other aspects of an economy. So we had a trip actually planned to India that was canceled due to COVID. India actually stopped us from actually entering into the country. So that was that. So I was actually born in Punjab, India. Punjab. I was around 8 when I immigrated to Canada with my family. I was raised in Brampton, Ontario. That's where I live even to this day. I play soccer. I love playing FIFA as well. I used to play for my school teams. I play some pickup here and there. I love to go hiking. That's something I did just yesterday. Nearby, we have something called Kelso Conservation Area. That's something I hiked just yesterday. And I love traveling locally around the world. Something I love doing. So also in the past, I was a client of FutureMeMD, the program that's offering the seminar, along with the prep sessions I did with my close friends. I was asking FutureMeMD consultants for help. I was doing sessions with them, preparing, and I think that was an avenue that really allowed me to hone in on my skills for interviews and really allowed me to excel during my interviews. So I applied to all of Ontario schools except for NOSM, and I was accepted into McMaster, University of Ottawa, Western. These were direct acceptances. I'm not sure if that matters, but it's like they were just direct acceptances and not waitlisted. So I have maybe something I could give you guys, some tips. about how to structure your application. And in the future, when you guys get interviews, maybe I can help you guys prepare, and you guys can reach out to me. So my experience with OMSAS. So I actually applied twice to Ontario schools, once after my fourth year of undergraduate studies. That time I wasn't successful. I didn't land any interviews. Nothing really went my way. And I remember the first experience I had was that I was very anxious in my first cycle. This is because you have such a hard job of finding references throughout undergrad, especially in my program. That wasn't something you always seeked out. And it was really difficult figuring out who I needed to ask, who I wanted to ask, who could really paint a good picture of me to schools. I feel that OMSAS is a very efficient system, especially if you're in province. You enter your school and they request transcripts directly. I know some schools, if you're applying out of province, you have to actually manually send them transcripts at different pointed times and the deadlines, or you can have your application actually revoked. So OMSAS makes that easier for us as Ontario students. So the second time around, I did find some little issues here and there. One of my references actually submitted the confidential assessment form, which is a new replacement for the reference letters that were submitted in the past. This form was submitted on the last day actually, and I remember I was just like very stressed out, not getting really good sleep that night, and I was fortunate enough to have it in time, but that was something that was very frightening. So the second time when I applied, I had a relatively higher MCAT score, and I had a few more experience under my belt, which I feel allowed me to open up new doors to different universities, secure more interview spots. Before there was 0, now I had 3. But yeah, I think that really helped me land that interview, move forward into interview phase, and really excel in interviews. So I began working on my application. Okay, so what was your GPA? So that's a question I see in the chat. I don't mind sharing, but I'll give you a range. It depends on the school that you're applying to. Western calculates it differently, Queen's calculates it differently, McMaster's different. So it really depends. My CGPA was between 3.85 to 3.95, depending on the school that I was applying to. And yeah, so that was my GPA. So I began working on my application in early September. So I wish I had started actually working a bit earlier. So now you guys have the month of August. I want you guys to start now, because when you get to September, I know now classes are online, but school's still going to pick up and there's going to be a lot more things in your way. So it's better to get stuff out of the way now. So I wish I had done that in the past. It would have saved me a lot of anxiety, would have saved me that last day CAF form submission had I done it earlier. But yeah, it is what it is. But I urge you guys to start earlier, look at the essay questions, plan out what you want to do, and really have a game plan when you go into September and October. So now I'm just going to give you some general tips. How can we access application by August? I believe you can. I have been able to access it. My previous application from last year has been wiped out. A new application cycle has started, and you can access it now. If you go onto it, you can check out OMSAS. They are running, and you can start your application. So now I'm going to give you guys some general tips. I have 5 tips for you guys. After it's a Q&A session, you guys can bombard me with any number of questions. I'll be here till 6. So feel free to ask anything that's on your mind. So some general tips. When you're asking for a reference, I want you guys to really consider who you are asking. You want the right people to fill in this form. You don't want people that you haven't talked to for a long time, people that you worked with maybe for a week, one weekend. You want people that can really, truly paint the accurate picture of you. And as wrong as it sounds at times, you want a good picture of you going forward. You don't want them saying anything negative about you. And yeah, so you have to be very critical with who you pick. These people are really going to have to answer some very serious questions about you, your personality, your attitudes, and if you are even ready to become a physician. So you want to make sure that whoever it is, you educate them on the importance of this form, um, and really seek out people like professors, supervisors, employers that you know can speak strongly on your behalf. This doesn't always just mean that they can speak well on your behalf, but they have examples to maybe back up what they're saying. Um, so don't choose people that you don't know well. References are actually a key component of the application. Many schools consider them in your interview assessment criteria before you get the interview to see if you deserve one. So you want to make sure this component is taken care of and taken care of well. So I urge you guys to maybe now start brainstorming. I know I had a list of 6 people that I had to shortlist and see who I should pick, who I should move forward with. And if someone needs more time, I know many of you may have been working with researchers, supervisors. If they need more time, give them a heads up now that, hey, I'm going to reach out to you. I need this done by end of September. Can you please verify that you can get this done maybe 10 days before it's due? So you can rest assured, unlike me that night. But yeah, so I want you guys to reach out to your references as soon as possible, write down and really figure out who you want to write the reference. And yeah, so move forward and really think about this critically. Don't just rush this process. It's very important to your application. You want strong people saying strong things about you. Any questions about this? Okay. What is considered a competitive MCAT score in Ontario? I'm not sure what a competitive MCAT would be. I think every school looks at different things. I know CARS is a big component for many schools. I feel that this is just personally me speaking, I'm not part of any admissions committee or anything. By far, I'm not anywhere close to that. But I feel that if you have more than like a 126, 127 CARS, this opens up doors at various universities such as Queen's, Western. To get maybe a position at McMaster, you want a 128. I know the average is a 129. So a 129 is pretty decent. 128 is good as well. Ottawa doesn't require it. But yeah, so there's very different ranges that schools look at. Which month should we ask for references? Thinking 3 months heads up, or when are they due? So I think references are actually due at the end of September, unless they've changed it. For me, it was that was a process. And I urge you guys to reach out to them before September. If you can, maybe in a week or two, but don't wait till mid-September. Sometimes you don't get a reply back. Sometimes professors go on sabbatical and they don't check their emails, they don't check their inboxes. So you just want to make sure you have it all locked and loaded before September, so you don't have to stress out about finding references, so you can think clearly about your essays, get it edited in time, not worry about other things, and stuff like this. Should we reach out to more references than I need to? I think that's a very unstable thing to do. If you do reach out to, let's say, 4 people and all of them say yes, and then you have to explain to them why you're not choosing them, it's kind of hard to do, so I don't recommend it. I say go one by one, see if they're replying. If let's say today you send an email to one of your professors, he hasn't replied for a week and you're still waiting, you sent a follow-up, maybe it's time to look to the next person in line. So that's how I recommend you guys go about it. Don't ask too many people, because then it looks kind of rude when you go back to them and say, hey, I don't need you anymore. How many references would be ideal? I think the school relatively want 3 references. I would say have more than 3, just in your mind. Don't reach out to them, just have them in mind. Think of people that could vouch for you. So I would say maybe 4 to 5 in your mind, but minimum is 3. So if you have 3 solid people, that's good enough. The rest is just for to make it easier for you, for more options for you. A reference is expected to have strong things to say about every CF question. For example, can a professor really comment on empathy? Which is one of the questions. Yes, that's a good question. I don't think they have to be very vocal about every single question that's on the CAF form. I feel that if the reference is able to talk about enough things. Say they can't really comment on empathy, right? But they can comment on professionalism, communication, other aspects. That makes up for that lack, right? As long as it didn't see like kick a dog and they write, hey, this person kicks dogs, this person is empathetic, that's a problem. But if they don't have much strong things to say, but they can make up for in other aspects, that I think that makes up for their inability to answer one of the questions on the CF form. I hope that answers that question. So we'll move on to the next tip. No worries. So tip 2 is report accurate number of hours for your ABS sketches and let your verifiers know you're listing them. So often you see on Reddit, on other places, some of my friends have told me, when you're writing down hours for your ABS sketches, sometimes you have a different picture in your mind of how many hours you've done, how many hours you've volunteered here, or what you've done here. I want you guys to really reach out to your verifiers, let them know you're listing them down, tell them what you're writing down so they're not caught off guard, and really verify it. Let's say you're writing down you did 600 hours of community service at this homeless shelter, but the homeless shelter only has you down for 300 hours. There's a huge discrepancy. And when OMSAS or any school goes to really verify your information and they see that there's a huge discrepancy, that can actually reflect really poorly on your professionalism, and it can really even blacklist your application at times, and can cause a lot of unnecessary anxiety and explanations that if you just go out of your way beforehand, it can really help you avoid all that. So please do make sure you're writing the accurate number of hours. I don't want any of you getting in trouble for writing too many. Don't be too nice and write too little. Write as many as you think are accurate for that activity. And just make sure you let your verifiers know, because at times school will reach out to them, but if they can't get to them, then they have to come through you and ask why isn't the verifier able to get back to us? Would you like to change your verifier? So just make sure you just give them a quick email, just tell them what's going on. They might be reached out to throughout the application cycle. So it just keeps them in the loop. Okay, so I see a few more questions. Do you recommend that the references write a comment for each question, example, empathy, or explain it, or scoring us is enough? I really don't know how the referencing system, or like the references system works. Maybe they just look at the score. Maybe they also look at the description that's written. So I would suggest that the reference still fills out those little comments if there are a comment section, because if they are looking at that, you don't want to be just short-sighted and get shortlisted because of it. So I would suggest that if they have something to add, a comment that describes who you are, ask them to write it. But yeah, but if they don't have anything to write, don't make them write something that's not true. Just make sure if they have something to say, they write it down. It helps the admissions committees make a more accurate judgment of who you are, and it can make it easier for you guys to move forward. Will you be made aware that your application got flagged? Mine never got flagged, so I'm not sure if there are email systems that go out, but you might get an email, you might get some kind of communication saying, hey, we have some problems. Some schools, yeah, so they might email out to you asking a few more questions, but I'm not really sure on if you will get a notification. For verifiers, I heard from a med student that they don't accept Gmail, only domain of organization. Is this true? So for verifiers, I'm not even sure if you really need an email. I think you either need an email or a phone number. So I'm not sure if Gmail is not taken. I had no problems with it. I had a few verifiers that use Gmail, and I didn't really have any problems. So I'm not really sure. I never had any problems with this. You can ask the OMSAS help. They have a chat, talk with us, like a little portal. You can ask them questions there. And yeah, sorry, my headphones are unplugged. Okay. So we'll move on to the next tip. like I was saying before, you want to get started early. So get started on your Toronto essays, Western sketches early. These essays and sketches require a lot of time, a lot of contemplation. You really need to think about how you can relate yourself to these very vague questions. They make these questions very vague because there's such a vast and diverse applicant pool that applies every single cycle. And to get that variety, they want to see in their classes, they want to see students that are actually unique. So I want you guys to really think about these essays. Don't just write something, let's say if they're asking about what do you think Canada should do, I'm just saying this example, Canada should do in the coming 100 years to improve the healthcare. Don't just write about that topic. Try to incorporate your personality in there somewhere. Talk about your own experiences. Hey, I've worked with the elderly population. I see that they're not getting enough resources. I feel like put your personality in there. It really allows them to see you in the essays because they are personal essays. They're not just essays. So make them personal. Put your experiences. Really tie yourself in there so they get an accurate picture of who you are and they really want to invite you in for an interview. So Toronto has, I believe, 4 essays and 3 ABS detailed sketches. So that's 7 things there. Western has like 7 to 8 things as well. So that's a lot of things you have to write out. So I urge you guys to really plan this out beforehand. Don't leave this till last minute. Just really think about what you want to write down, how you want to go about it, get it edited by a lot of people. Some universities, I know McMaster has Academic Success Center. Other universities may have similar facilities. We can actually go forward with your work and get it edited by professionals that help you prepare for grad schools and professional settings and really get that input and really see how you can improve your quality of work and move forward with that. Don't just submit it as is, get it edited, read it over, show it to your family, friends. That's what I did. I made my sister read it. At times she got very annoyed, but she had to do it. She's my sister. But so ask your siblings, your parents to really help you out through this because they have the best thoughts and they really think for you. Other people, your friends or your classmates may not be really looking out for you. Your parents and your family will always look out for you. So if you can, reach out to them, ask for help. I see a question. What are academic success centers listed in the slide? Is the same as academic counseling or a department you can reach out to? So yeah, it depends on your school. You can figure out what services your school offers. Often universities do offer help with finding employment, finding help, preparing your application for grad school, professional programs. So reach out to those kind of departments, those kind of centers that are available at your school. They're often free. They're included in your yearly auxiliary costs that the university takes from you. So they are free of cost. Make free use of them. And just make sure when you are accessing them, you give them enough time because a lot of students, not just medical students, but dentistry students, law students, a lot of other students are going to be accessing these resources at the same time. So you want to make sure you can get a slot in and that you're not left out just waiting for a slot because you came too late. It's not something that you have to do essentially. It's not something that's going to break your application if you don't do it, but it's something that's there for you to use. So if you can, if you have time, if you get all your work done beforehand and you want it edited, I do recommend going to these resources offered by your school. When do you start for these essays? So you can start these essays whenever you want. Like I feel that Western and U of T have on their website, they've written what essay questions will be on the portal this year. The portal has opened. You can look at the questions there. So you can start at any point. I know a few individuals that I applied with, they had their essays done by the start of September because they're working on it in August. So just really figure out what works for you. Do you like working under pressure? Do you want to have that pressure? Is that how you work well? And see if that's what you like doing, maybe start in September. But if you're someone who gets really anxious and that drives you crazy when you're applying, and this is a highly stressful moment and it's going to be a highly stressful year in your life, just make sure you get that out of the way earlier so you have them ready to get edited. I missed the first slide. Could you please go back to tip 1 for a second? Okay, I'll go back. Also, guys, these slides are being recorded. You can access them anytime. So tip 1 was just figure out who you want to ask for reference. Make sure you know these people well, know that they can really vouch for you. I feel someone's mic is on. Please just keep your mics and videos on. Off. Thank you. Oh, no worries. Like I said, again, be unique. You want to show your personality. Don't skimp out on that. Show them who you are. Show them how wonderful you are, how big of an asset you will be to the program. And that will really help you differentiate yourself from these other applicants that are applying. And yeah, so I'll go into the next tip. Well, we have access to the presentation afterwards. I'm not sure if the slides will be available, but I am recording this whole presentation. You guys can reference back to this presentation from the FutureMeMD website. It might be under my consultant page. You can find it there, or they have a whole page for seminars, and you can watch all the previous seminars on Casper, interview prep, and this will be there as well. So you can reach out and find it there. Is it okay to have all research academic references, or should you have community-based references as well? Thanks. So I think that depends on the school. Some schools want you to have a mix of references. I personally had one employer, one research supervisor, and one professor. So I think that's a decent mix, but yeah, so those were the references I used for both of my years, a professor, an employer, and a research supervisor. Yeah, so I'm not sure. You have to look at each school. Some schools want you to have one community reference, one academic, one whatever. You have to look into it. But that's how I got by. I just had a professor, employer, and supervisor write it in for me. So we'll move on to the next question. Tip. Okay, so as you guys have probably seen in the last cycle, if it's your first cycle, you'll find out very soon when you go into OMSAS that there are very limited number of characters for the ABS sketches. So there, I feel like 100 or 150 characters. Just please don't try to tell a whole story in those characters. You'll run out, I guarantee it. Just try to be very brief. Tell them what you did, what the outcome was, what your role was. That's what they're really looking for. They're not looking for that you worked with this person, or you worked with this person, you worked these many hours, or that kind of stuff. They just want to know what you did in that job. So I have a couple of examples that I'm going to have in the next 2 slides. And I'll walk you through, and I'll give you a better understanding of how you want to structure these. Also, you want to show your abilities, who you are, how capable you are. You really want to highlight your abilities in this 150 characters to the best of your abilities. And yeah, so we'll move on to the examples. So the first example I have for you guys is like, let's say you were a leader. You had some leadership role. For example, you were the president of some association or club, and you want to add that to your ABS. This is a very good entry for your ABS. It shows leadership, like I said, and that's something that's very important in physicians. You got to be able to lead a team of other healthcare professionals, and even your patients at time. You want to be able to communicate with them and have that leadership ability instilled within you. And that's something that medical schools look for throughout this application cycle, through OMSAS, through your interviews and all that. So this is something that's very good to highlight. So what the description you can write is that, hey, I led a team of executives, I organized events to engage the local community, and I spread awareness for X as in like, oh, let's say ALS or anything else. But you don't want to say I was, like in the description, president for 3 years, was junior secretary before, like stuff like that. That's not going to paint any picture of you. No one wants to know how you excel to this amazing position of being a president. They just want to know what you did, what your role was, how you managed yourself. So here you talk about your leadership skills, your organization skills, and you engaging with the local community shows your communication skills, right? And spreading awareness is just you advocating for something, right? So that really shows who you are. It gives so many messages in these 150 characters that other things that you write might not. So you want to be very careful with how you word these. Again, these will be examples. I will be, it's being recorded. You can reference these after. So you just want to tell them what you did and what impact did you make, right? Don't give them anything else. They don't want to know any like autobiography of you or what you did in that role. They just want to know exactly like what your role was and what impact you made for the club, for the community, or yourself, like, so talk about that kind of stuff. The second one is like often many of us have jobs outside of school and we find it awkward. How do we relate this to medicine? Oh, I worked as a cashier, I worked at a warehouse. How does that relate to medicine? There are actually a few things you can implement. Again, like I said, you just want to show those characteristics that you have. Are you a good communicator? Can you advocate for something? Are you organized? Are you punctual? Those are things that you really want to highlight through these ABS sketches. It's not the activity itself. It's how you describe it that you want to put forward. A store cashier isn't looked down upon. They're not going to say, oh, this is not related to medicine. They're looking for that description. So talk about how, like here I have a description. Let's say you're a cashier at let's say Longo's or any other store, Walmart. And the description you can write down is, I strive to make customer experience seamless and enjoyable, which shows that you're very relatable, you know how to communicate, that kind of stuff. And you learn to work in a fast-paced environment. Fast-paced environments are all around us, right? Like in medicine, if you're working on the ER floor or anything, you're going to have a very fast-paced environment around you. The fact that you're able to cope with these kind of changes in these kind of environments really like makes you look good in the eyes of the raters for your application. So show that you know how to work in these kind of environments in this case, but don't just throw it in everywhere. But also like talk about how you communicated with coworkers. So yeah, learn to work in a fast-paced environment and communicate with coworkers. Communication is important. If you can work with coworkers and really communicate throughout the day, that shows you have those abilities. You can transfer them forward into medicine when you become a medical student, when you become a physician and a resident, right? So any questions about this? I see there's a question. Is there anywhere to list awards? Let's say we had an accomplishment for a club we made, aka president for a club, or is it only in the descriptions? There are actually awards you can list out. So let's say you're working with an organization. Let's say you're the president as well, but you got an award. You don't have to write it under the presidency. You can make it a separate ABS item. You can write it as a reward or award, saying, hey, I was nominated for this and I won the best advocate award or something at your school or in the community. And you can write that down as a different thing in your ABS sketch. So you don't have to put in the description, make it a different item in your ABS sketch, and it'll help you stand out more. Yeah. Where can we access the recording afterwards? So the recording will be put under my consultant page, hopefully, and it will be available on the website. There's a whole page for seminars. You can watch all the past seminars that we've had for Casper, for interview prep, and all that. So it will be available online on our website. Would you suggest adding in hobbies, other interests, activities? Yeah, so I do recommend that. So personally, I actually added in hiking. So other stuff that I do, traveling, I actually listed down one of my travels. I went to hike the foothills of the Himalayas in my second year summer. I wrote that down as something in my ABS. And sometimes you might be wondering, hey, who do I write down as a verifier? They don't want family. Well, for those kind of things that no one else can verify, you can have a family member verify those for you. I had my sister verify, hey, he did go on this trip and stuff like that. Is it okay if we don't add hobbies? Yeah, it's up to you. If you have space and you have things you want to tell admissions committee, you can add them in. It can be any hobbies. It can be any experiences you've had, you can add them in, but it's not going to kill your application if you don't. Can we put down primary caretaker of family member in other sections? Um, yeah, uh, you could. You can put that down as something you're doing on the side. It shows that you don't want to hide that for sure, right? Like that may take up a lot of your time throughout the day, make it a bit more difficult compared to other students, and you really want to highlight that for sure. You might be able to add that into ABS. I don't see an issue with it. If the schools don't think it's applicable, they're not going to penalize you for it. I feel they're just going to not look at it. They'll just skim right by it. But you can reach out to the OMSAS. There's a portal, like a chat, online chat you can have with them and ask them this question, and they can better direct you with this for sure. How do you suggest we write about our hobbies, especially sports and music? I mean, more in terms of description, what should be included? So I feel in those hobbies and descriptions, you want to talk about um, what you learned from the activity, right? Let's say you play a guitar. At first, playing a guitar is not easy, right? You have to learn all the notes and everything. So you want to write down, hey, it took a lot of perseverance. I took a lot of coaching. Now I'm able to teach others, right? Like, let's say you have a younger sibling, you're teaching them how to play the guitar. You can write that down. So show some other abilities that you have. Don't list it down. Talk about what you took away from it, how if you are able to get back with that hobby, what you're doing, and I think that'll make it more influential and make it easier for readers to see and mark highly. I hope that answered that question. Okay, so the final tip. After this, you guys can go crazy asking all the questions you want. I'm all yours. So for reapplicants, I want you guys to keep in mind that I know last time when you guys did the Casper test, you probably linked it to your OMSAS ID, but that Casper ID actually remains locked to the previous cycle's OMSAS ID. So I want you guys to change it to the new OMSAS ID. So every year when you submit your application, you'll get a new OMSAS ID, after which you can book a Casper test. You just get in contact with the people at Casper and have them change the ID for you. So your Casper actually links to your OMSAS application. If you don't do this, I feel that it won't link to your application and schools won't see that you've done Casper, which can have you rejected from those schools because you didn't meet their requirements. Also, another tip for people that are reapplying, if you're reusing any of the sketch items for UFT, because they remain the same, right? They just ask you list 3 ABS sketch items in detail, right? So when you're reusing them, make sure you email the school and tell them, hey, I am reusing this component of my application from last year. This is because you might get flagged for plagiarism, and that's the last thing you want, right? And you don't want to be self-plagiarizing. So just make it clear to them, hey, I have reused this component of my application, and that way they won't use the Turnitin system to go through your ABS sketch, detail sketches, and that'll save you a lot of hassle, and yeah, it won't put that anxiety on your table. So also I want you guys to, if you have applied in the past, reflect on the last cycle and your OMSAS application. What did you do wrong? Is there anything maybe I told you guys today that could help? Do you need help from outside resources? Were you anxious? Did you not have enough time to write your essays? Like, that's something you guys need to figure out. FutureMeMD offers services. You can access their packages. You can see if that's something that you want to pursue. You can also ask your friends, your family for all this help. What was your CAR score and how did you prep for Casper? Well, that's kind of like out of the scope of this presentation, but I'll say this, my CAR score was higher than the 95th percentile. And how to prep for Casper. That's like a whole presentation on its own. And we have a whole seminar on Casper that you can check out on our website. I think that will help you more with that question than I can right now. Yeah. So Q&A, you guys can ask questions related to OMSAS. Yeah. Is it okay to list my high school teacher as a reference if they know us better for sure? We'll write this wrong. Actually, like you can ask a high school teacher. I have a friend who asked a high school teacher for his medical school application, and he had no problems. So if you feel like your high school teacher can speak better than anyone else that you've met in your university years, do reach out to them. OMSAS and other schools are not going to look down upon it. They don't look at their status or anything about the uh, how they rank, right? Like anyone who can speak strongly, that's not related to you, someone's professional, that should work just fine. And your teacher, I think, is a great person to ask. If you have a manuscript in progress and a publication soon as undergrad, can you include it in OMSAS somehow if it hasn't been published yet? You can include that. I remember I included it in the description, make it clear that this is something that's being verified, something that's not published yet. You can add that in there for sure, but you just have to do it right, right? Don't write you already have the publication. Just write that, hey, it's in progress. What stage is that? You can describe that if you want, but just don't make it seem like you already have a publication. Make it clear to them that this is something that's being reviewed by a journal right now. I completed a third-year research project course, essentially a thesis, as I had my own project in a wet lab, and I wrote a thesis format report on it at the end. Wanted to know if I can include that in the ABS. Would it be research? That is something that you did on your own. And I remember when I did my thesis in fourth year, I wrote that down as a research entry in my ABS sketch. So I don't see how that wouldn't be something you can add. You can add that for sure, but make sure you talk to your verifier, explain to them that you are adding them down so they're not caught off guard, and see if they're comfortable with that, right? Like if they don't feel like it's research, don't list them down, right? Like you don't want to add it down and the school reaches out and they say, hey, the student didn't do research. They did this. They just did this small part. Make sure like they're okay with you writing it down as a research position. Yeah, so reach out to your professor, whoever it was that you're working with, and I think they'll save you some trouble down the road. Your ABS entries, how did you list the hours? For example, did you put the total number of hours or did you do weekly/monthly? So I did actually weekly. That's a good question. So let's say you're writing down for an entry, let's say you worked with the homeless shelter, right? And you want to write down how many hours you did. It's actually better if you write it how many per week or per month, something like that, rather than just writing 100 hours. That's how I did it. But I actually didn't just write 10 hours per week. I also wrote the total number as well at the end to make it clear, like, hey, this is what I think I did over this time. So I feel that you want to write down as much as you can. If you can break it down into hours per week, hours per month, whatever works for you. If you're the president of a club, who should be used as our verifiers? Will it not be a good idea? Actually, you can use your VPs. When I was the president of the club, I actually used the vice president and the co-president. I asked both of them for their verification. The co-president was actually willing enough to move forward and provide me with that verification. So you can ask your co-president, your vice president, anyone in the executive team to verify that. So yeah, you should be fine. Ask someone who's part of the club, not someone who's outside of the club, and someone who can, if they are asked, like let's say they get a call or an email, they can provide an accurate description that matches what you have provided on OMSAS, right? So you just want to make sure this person knows what you did, and a VP, a co-pres, an executive is perfect for that, yeah. For volunteer hours, what amount of hours is considered satisfactory? Good example, 60 plus, 150 plus. It really depends on the activity and how long you've done it. So I had some entries that were like 30 hours, 10 hours. I had some that were like 80, 500. So it really depends. Like, it depends on the activity. There's no activity that you shouldn't include. Let's say you did 10 hours at the community service center or something, right? And you feel like, hey, will I be looked down upon on that? No, they're not going to look down upon it. Make sure you add that. It's not going to hurt your application. Just add whatever you've done, right? Like paint an accurate picture of yourself. That way you won't run into any issues down the road and you'll find it, you won't run into any issues, and you'll find the process a bit more seamless and less anxiety provoking. For the manuscript in progress question, I'm in a similar situation. Should a list, sorry, questions keep coming. Should I list that under research or separate section? You can list that under whatever you find is a good thing to list it under. That's very vague, but maybe you can list it under research if it was a research project you did and that was a result of that research project. So what I did, I wrote my thesis as a research, and then as a separate entry, I wrote the paper. So I didn't couple the thesis and the paper together. I made the thesis a different thing and the paper a different thing. And you can write that down in research for sure. But if you feel like it's better for the other section or any other section, you want to make sure you put in the right section. But overall, I don't think OMSAS is going to really penalize you if you put in the wrong section. They'll look at it and then they'll assess your application. Do you know the end cutoff date for ABS entry? I think it's nothing done in the summer or something like that. You have to look into it. OMSAS has a breakdown of what's acceptable for ABS entry. And I feel that there's some things that, let's say you just started in October when you're submitting it, or like, let's say you started it like a week ago now, that's something that they might not look at. So you have to look into it for sure. Just look into it. They have all the information. I remember coming across that information when I was applying last year. Is it okay to have one of your references as a verifier? Yeah, for sure. So one of my references, my research supervisor was also a verifier for ABS sketch entry. So there's no problem with that. Just let them know again, hey, I'm listing you for the verification and the CAF form, the reference. So they're up to date and they're not caught off guard. If you start an activity before the age of 16, should you list the actual start date or the date you turn 16? So for my example, I used to play school soccer for my high school. So I wrote that down. I started in grade 9. I'm pretty sure I wasn't 16 then, but I wrote that down, and I just wrote it down the day I started and the day I ended, right? And you don't have to specify like, oh, when I turned 16, like you don't have to write the 16th birthday and onwards. Just write whatever the time frame is, and they'll figure it out. Like I don't feel like that's something you really have to stress about. Yeah. So also feel free to write stuff from your high school experiences, any high school activities you've done. It's not going to hurt you. If you have space in your ABS, make sure you write it. Do you think you can get into med school without research experience besides a university coursework or publication? Yeah, for sure. Research isn't something that's going to hold you back, right? If you don't have it, doesn't mean you're not going to get in. You can get in without research. Just make sure that you have other activities that show your abilities. Research doesn't show everything, right? It might take off one section, but the others may be missing. So what you want to do is make sure you have a very accurate picture of yourself, something that shows that you're a well-rounded applicant. And research is a plus point. If you have it, it doesn't hurt. But if you don't have it, it shouldn't hold you back. So don't feel like, hey, I don't have research, I won't get in. That's not the case. I didn't have any hardcore research myself. I worked in an ecology lab as a thesis student, right? There's nothing crazy about that. So yeah, you don't have to be curing cancer or working on HIV and AIDS. You can just apply as you are as well. Research isn't going to hold you back. Where should I put an unpaid internship? A required part of education to be a registered dietitian. It really doesn't fit under OMSAS education section, but yet it's not really employment experience either. You can put this under the other, or I'm pretty sure they have another classification. You could write it under there, explain what you did. So do list it under your ABS. If it can't be put under your education, you can write in your ABS section. So yeah, so Chelsea, you can do that. Nikki asking, if you win like a award from Nesric, is it okay to include it as 2 OMSAS entries? One is employment, other is award. Yeah, like I don't see anything wrong with that. If you have space, uh, if you can't find a way to fill those other slots in your ABS sketch, it doesn't hurt to write it as two. You did win it as award, and then did turn it to employment. So technically, you're clear. I don't see anything wrong with that. You can write it as two. What kind of stuff did you list under extracurriculars on the ABS? So under extracurriculars, I played badminton, volleyball. I tutored students on the side. I worked with refugees. Um, I worked with local organizations in my community to help them record like religious events, any meetings that they had. What else? What else? So stuff like that, very general stuff that most of us have done. Like anything, like let's say you're part of extracurricular also includes like let's say you're president, you're part of some kind of committee at your school. You can write that down, no problem. That's what I had down. Did you list the hours of sports you played, such as you played volleyball since middle school up to intramural volleyball? Because I'm confused how to verify that. I'm not sure about the hours. You can write the frequency. You can write twice a week. I played this, right? So like when I played intramural volleyball, it was once a week, and it was for like let's say an hour, right? So I just wrote down under my extracurriculars like, hey, I play volleyball intramural level. This is my time commitment for it. It's once a week, that kind of stuff. So that's how I wrote it. But if you've been playing it since middle school, maybe break it down into two entries. Write the stuff that you did prior to university. So that can be like playing for out of school team or for a school team. And then when you get to university, you can write, hey, for casual or competitive play, I played for the intramural teams, that kind of stuff. Yeah. How can you verify that? Again, you can ask a teammate, you can ask your coaches, you can ask someone like that to verify that for you. So just ask someone who can vouch that you did do that activity, that knows you well. Okay. By any chance, if it's okay, can you summarize a timeline for us in terms of OMSAS? Such as reference is approximately this month, APS by this month, etc. Yeah, for sure. So I suggest that this month you guys reach out to your references, or at least have an idea of who you're trying to reach out to. Write a nice email, explain them the whole process, what a confidential assessment form is. So they're not like maybe they haven't done a medical school reference before. This is the first time. You don't want to have them figuring everything out. Make it easier for them. So that's something you want to do this month. You also want to make sure that you have a general idea, maybe like a rough sketch of what you want to write for your essays. You have it planned out. You have a timeline by when you want to get something done, and you reach out to your peers, your friends, your family, even school like departments that are willing to look over your work, and really ask them, hey, can I ask you for help when I'm applying? You can get in contact again with FutureMeMD. We offer packages here as well for your OMSAS application, for Casper prep, for interview prep. So make sure you're fully set up and ready to go. So come September, you don't find yourself flat-footed, but you're ready to get going and start this marathon. Okay. How did you balance your time between extracurricular, club, job, research, or split your time? So for me, what I feel I did was all my activities weren't happening on, let's say, one day. I had them spaced out. Some days I had volleyball, the other day I was playing badminton, one day I was TAing, that kind of stuff. I just had them segregated. I also made sure I had a good, like a calendar system going, so I knew when something's due. I gave myself, let's say I have a test coming up, I gave myself 3 to 4 days prior to that I made sure I'm not occupied with my friends, family, or anything. So I'm studying, that kind of stuff. I feel that if you just have good time management, you can balance this kind of stuff. use the tools at your hands like calendars, checklists, that kind of stuff to really keep you always engaged and always know what's coming next. Did you enter? Okay. Do you think your master's made you a more competitive applicant? Did you begin the master's straight out of undergrad or after your first cycle applying? So I started my master's after I finished undergrad in fourth year. I don't think it made any competitive advantage for me if I wasn't done the master's. So the requirement is that some of these schools that do look at masters that you want to have your master's done before you apply. So because my master's was still going on, they didn't really consider it as anything special, and I didn't get any competitive advantage during the application cycle. And I did it right after my fourth year. I was accepted, and in September after my fourth year, I started my master's. Okay. Okay. Did you enter a number of hours for your hobby? For example, did you put down your hike? Oh, yeah, for the hours for my hiking trip, it was kind of hard. I did the best I could. I just calculated like I was in the mountains for like 10 days. How many hours is that? So I just calculated that and put that down. And yeah, so that's how I did it. Um, yeah, so I did enter some hours for my hobbies for sure. Okay, did you fill out all ABS entry spots? Is it bad if you... I didn't actually use all the ABS entry spots. I don't have that many things going for me. So whatever I did have, I added, but I know I had a few things that a few slots that are available that I didn't fill in, but it still all worked out, right? Like it doesn't really harm you if you don't enter everything. Do your best, add as much as you can. Again, the important part is painting an accurate picture, something that the assessors can relate to. So we're going to stop taking questions. I'll answer the last few questions. And yeah, okay. If you have a burning question, you can still ask it. I'll give you guys like a minute. Okay. Can you list an activity if it happened outside of the country? US for me? Yeah, for sure. You can list it. I did my hiking trip in India, right? In the foothills of the Himalayas. Like that was not in Canada, not in US, not on North America. Completely different continent. You can write it down for sure. So don't worry about that. What are some things to include in an email to your references? So explain to them that you're applying, what the deadlines are, when you want something to be done by, what the process is going to be like, what the CAF form is all about. Tell them that you're available if they have any questions, so they can reach out to you. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Just make it very professional, and yeah, just ask for their help. Show that you need their help in this time. Also, like let's say you haven't worked with this person for a year and you're afraid they might have forgotten you. Try to jog their memory. Explain to them what you did, some key things that happened during experience that could jog their memory, and potentially even turn to examples that they write down the road when they're writing your CAF form. Yeah. If I volunteered for a research study and played a smaller role collecting subjects measurements and facilitating the behavior change classes for an intervention group, but had no role in the orchestrating the study or writing the paper, should I? So I had a very similar role as well. I was working with a community medicine study. I actually wrote it down under research section, but that's because I talked to my verifier. I made sure, hey, are you comfortable with me writing this down as a research thing? I've done this for more than 2 years now. What I did was just collect BP, give advice to elderly about their health conditions, how to manage it, how to be proactive. And I was using the data system that the study had to enter data, that kind of stuff. That was my role. And I was able to write that down as research, even though I wasn't like part of the research team, but I helped run the groundwork like you did in this case, Chelsea. So I think there's no issue with that. Just make sure you talk to your verifier. Just let them know if you're trying to write it down as a research position or research experience, so they're aware of it, so they're not caught off guard. Yeah, you don't want them saying, "Hey, this person was actually just volunteering, not researching," right? There's nothing wrong with that, but like just make it easier for you and You don't want to have the anxiety, hey, what if they say something else? Why did you decide a course-based master's in comparison to a thesis-based one? I took a course-based one because I wanted, so my master's actually isn't just a course-based one. Once we enter into this master's, we get an option to do either course-based or thesis-based. First semester, everyone does it together, but after that, you split up a bit. Um, uh, so I chose a course-based because I was applying to medicine. Medical school, some of them, if you're in a master's program, they want you to finish it before you start classes, and they don't let you drop your master's. So Western, for example, wants you to make sure you finish before August 15th. My master's ends on August 3rd, right? So it worked out perfectly for me. If I was in a thesis master's, which would be 2 years, let's say I applied this cycle and I'm in my first year of my 2-year master's, well, some schools, even if I do get a position there, they're not going to let me in because I'm not meeting the criteria. They don't want you bailing out on other programs and hurting other faculties. So just make sure you make the accurate judgment of what you want to do. If you want to apply the cycle and you're in a thesis-based master's and you're in first year, that might be an issue. But if you're in a course-based master's, you shouldn't run into any issues as long as you meet all the requirements before their deadline. Okay, did you put your master's on your application even though you were just starting it? Yeah, I did. I put it on my application and made them know that, hey, I'll be doing this. And when you do put your master's on it, they want a transcript for it. So good thing about OMSAS is that once you write down the institution that you're doing your education at, they just request a transcript directly. So I did my undergrad and master's at McMaster University. That way, they only requested one transcript, which had my history for my course-based master's and my 4 years of undergrad. Yeah, so if there's any other questions, but I feel that that was a session. I hope you guys all took something away from this session. Again, the session recording will be available on our website, so reach out and feel free to watch it then. And yeah, so also, again, one more little slip here. Oh, someone's trying to join. Okay. FutureMeMD, again, offers these services. We can help you throughout your whole application process. Feel free to reach out to me, to the team, and yeah, I can help you guys out. We can all help you prepare and take this cycle on. I wish you all the very best. This is a very stressful time for sure, but you guys are strong. You made it to this point. You're considering applying. You've done them. You've done everything. You're ready to go. I'm sure you guys will do great. Just have faith in yourself. Believe in all the great work you've done. Reflect on how amazing of a person you are, and just go forward with, ambition and everything. And you guys will do perfectly fine. Even if it doesn't work out this cycle, remember, it's not the end of the world. I didn't make it the first time. Second time, I made it to 3 schools. So make sure that you don't give up. You try your best, fix whatever isn't working, and ask for help at all times. Yeah. And yeah, so that was a presentation, guys. See a lot of thank yous. You're welcome, guys. It was a pleasure hosting the seminar. I look forward to seeing all of you maybe as my future classmates, fellow students, and I will be offering consultation services. You can reach out to me and we can set something up. So thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye. That's